Hello, Peter47890 here, Sirus, and welcome to my review of Fire Emblem Conquest. As a longtime fan of the Fire Emblem series, I was really hyped about Fire Emblem Fates, especially for the Conquest version, since it seemed to have appealed to the more old school style of Fire Emblem fans, which I am, having played and completed Genealogy of the Holy Wars, Biting Blades as Sword of Seals, Blazing Sword, Sacred Stones, Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, and Awakening, with having played quite a bit of Tharcia 776. So yeah, I was really hyped about Fates Conquest, though I also have plans of playing through Birthright and Revelation in the future. Just bought Birthright a few days ago in fact. But I also had reservation about it since Awakening, while a good game, and a game I really enjoyed, had some problems, but it seems that this game shares some elements of Awakening, like using the pair-up system. But now having played extensively through the game on Hard Classic, I'm ready to give my thoughts on the game. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it a worthy Fire Emblem game? Well, let's find out and start the review. Fire Emblem Fates Conquest is a strategy role-playing game that was developed by Intelligent System and published by Nintendo. It is available on the 3DS. Also note that I won't have any actual gameplay footage, unfortunately, for this review. I don't have a 3DS capture device at the moment, so sorry about that. Do also note that I won't be talking about the online feature of the game.
General, you face the High Prince of Hoshido, Ryoma. I challenge you to single combat.
I will accept your challenge, High Prince. But I'm no general. I am Crown Prince Sander of Nor! Kya! Ha!
Visually, Fire Emblem Fates looks really nice, from the very medieval European-based Nor Kingdom to the very feudal Japan Hoshido Kingdom. The visual style is really nice. It's an art style that's been done before, but it still looks really appealing, especially with the contrast between the Nor and Hoshido Kingdom, with each side having a visual identity of their own, from how their respective country look to the exclusive class designs that each side has. The game looks nice overall as well, with the 2D artwork and 2D sprite work on the 2D map having nice detail, as well as having nice good visual designs for each character in the game. And the generic portraits of the enemy NPCs are also pretty appealing to see as well, though there are a few that can be kinda funny looking. The 3D model is also well done, with the 3D model doing a good job of representing the 2D artwork well, with the animation work done with the 3D models feeling very fluid and appealing to watch. The map models are especially well done, with the transition between the 2D map and 3D environments being really seamless. It makes it feel like you're really fighting in the areas that you're in, rather than just a general representation of an area like in past Fire Emblem games. The music is also really well done, with it doing a good job of capturing the tone of Conquest. I especially like the more heavy and sorrowful map themes that Conquest displays, such as Dark Fall or Thorn in You, though the more triumphant track like End of All was an absolute joy to hear as well. The voice acting is also pretty decent. There's not much voice acting, but there are some voice lines in the dialogue here and there is a line that each character say whenever they get a critical or activate a battle skill that is a pleasure to hear. Now let's talk about the story of Fire Emblem Fates. You basically play as Corrin, an avatar type of character that you can customize, who's been raised by the Kingdom of Nor as a Norian prince/princess for most of his/her life. With the starting chapters is basically Garen, the King of Nor, basically thrusting you against Hoshido, which is a rival nation. But through some strange events that happen in the first few chapters of the game, you find out you were originally a Hoshido princess that was abducted from a very young age. And now with Nor and Hoshido about to engage in war, you have to decide whose side you're going to be on, Nor or Hoshido. Or to be exact, the choice is made for you depending on what version of Fates you bought. If you bought Birthright, you'd be fighting on the side of Hoshido, while if you bought Conquest, you'll be fighting on Nor. Though you buy the DLC Revelation, you'll be doing third alternative pathway, don't choose either side. But seeing as I'm reviewing Conquest, I'll be talking about the North side of the story basically. The story overall is probably the weakest part of Conquest if I have to be honest. The character I think is well done, especially in terms of the royal siblings, with whom you can really feel a strong sibling bond they have with Corrin, as well as being fun characters by themselves that you get to know, and the cast of characters you get to play as are also really fun and interesting to know as well. But it's the villain that's the main problem, mostly Garen, Yago, and Hans. They're so cartoonishly evil that it does hurt the story, and you ask why Corrin and the royal siblings deal with them, especially why Xander still trusts Garen so much with just how obviously evil he is. I know that Garen is his father and all, but it really does make Xander feel very gullible, and you would question why he would trust Garen so much with how obviously evil he's become. The story would have been better if Garen wasn't as obviously evil as he is, and to be more subtle about it, and it really does hurt the story and does come off as weak writing. The same can also be said about how Corrin tries to convince his sibling of Garen's true nature. And let's not talk about how they put the child characters in the story. That's really silly and badly written as well. Overall, the story really is the weakest part of the game. Now we talk about the gameplay of Fire Emblem Fates Conquest. Fire Emblem Fates Conquest plays like a strategy role-playing game, with you controlling a variety of units on a grid-based map, with you having to use careful positioning, knowing how to use the variety of units as well as the variety of weapons that are at your disposal, as well as having knowledge of the terrain, enemy placement, the weapon that the enemy carries, and also the deadly skills that they have in order to effectively go through the game. Structurally, Fire Emblem Fates Conquest does follow the more traditional Fire Emblem formula, with you progressing from chapter to chapter with no real way of grinding, as well as having limited resources, with you having to be smart with how you use your units in terms of both the short-term strategy of overcoming the enemy on the stage, but also the long-term strategy in terms of determining how to spread out the experience points that you gain from defeating enemy among your units smartly, so you will have a well-balanced team, as well as being smart in how you use the gold you get from the story mode to buy equipment, which really does give a nice feeling of progression and give a good strategic play to most of the game that most of the Fire Emblem games had to them. Now, mechanic wise, there are some things that are stable to the Fire Emblem series in this game, as well as some mechanics that was retained from Awakening, as well as a few things that has been changed to Fates. Permadeath or permanent death is still here if you choose the classic setting, though you can also pick casual if you're not up for permadeath. The weapon triangle is still in this game, with swords being axes, axes being lances, and lances being swords, but there's also a new weapon triangle to accommodate the new type of weaponry that was introduced in this game, which is namely hidden weapons, with tomes, bows, and hidden weapons sharing a slot with the sword, axe, and lances weapon triangle, with swords sharing with tomes, axes sharing with bows, and hidden weapons sharing a slot with lances. So essentially that means that sword and tomes beat axes and bows beat hidden weapons and lances, and hidden weapons and lances beat swords and tomes. While this might seem a bit much to remember, the weapon icons themselves are color coded to make it easier to remember which weapon has the advantage over which are the red icon weapons have the advantage over green, green having advantage over blue, and blue having an advantage over red. Not to mention, you also see if you got an advantage or disadvantage in the battle calculation screen, so you won't feel too overwhelmed with the new weapon triangle system. And while we're talking about the weapon triangle, a new weapon has been introduced, as I said, with these new weapons being hidden weapons. which are namely shurikens, knives, and kunai, and etc. And they're really interesting weapons to introduce, since these weapons, while seemingly weak, debuff any foe they hit, which really does change the dynamic of the game significantly. It can make you really worry of the classes that utilize these new weapons, as well as being fun to utilize the hidden weapons against enemies. And debuff is a theme in the changes that can be seen in Fates, not only with the new hidden weaponry that was introduced, but also with how the more powerful weapon function in the game now that there is no weapon durability, with the silver weapon and higher rank weapon being able to debuff your stats if you use them, which really does make you think in how to use the more powerful weaponry you get throughout the game, which does really make you think, should I use these extremely powerful weapons against this enemy, or save it for a very stronger enemy down the line, like a paired up unit or even a boss, which overall encourage smart item uses. And this doesn't just apply to like the higher rank weapons. Normal everyday weapons to the Fire Emblem series, such as the javelin and the hand axe, has also been modified, so you have to think more strategically with them, such as with the javelin and hand axe, you get reduced speed by 5 and can't double attack them. Or heck, even the tomahawk, which is the higher rank axe-throwing weapon, doesn't debuff you, but you can't attack from any space that's adjacent to you, like an archer. And there's a lot of other changes to the weaponry that I won't get into, but it's a pretty significant change compared to past Fire Emblem games. And this change, along with the limited funds, does offset the fact that weapon doesn't have durability, which really does encourage smart item management. In fact, I say Conquest is one of the Fire Emblem games where you have to be the most careful with how you use your funds, since you don't really get that much gold throughout the game. The skill system is also in Fates, with it functioning mostly the same as Awakening, with skills being either passive abilities or chance-based abilities that can really change how the unit fight, such as if a unit has the Gamble skill, it allows them to have crit plus 10, though lowering their hit chance by 10. Or if they have the Lunge ability, which allows the unit to switch places with any unit that they fight, or Astra, which is a powerful chance-based ability that allows a unit to attack 5 times in a row. If they proc it, that is. Abilities like these can really change the tactic in how you tackle an enemy, and it's really fun to strategize around how enemies have certain deadly skill combinations. Well, fun to strategize around, but also scary and thinking, how the freak am I gonna get past these units? This is especially so for Conquest, since I think I heard that the enemy units in the Conquest version of the game have much more interesting and deadly skill combination than the Birthright and Revelation version of the game. The way how skills are learned is also the same as Awakening, with you learning specific skills by leveling up to a certain level in a certain class. But why the skill system seems to be largely the same as Awakening system, there has been a good amount of new skills that's been added that does make things a lot more interesting, as well as some skills that's been rebalanced for the better, such as Counter. Along with the new skills, there's also quite a few new classes. Some of them are just really counterparts of each other for the different sides, like the Diviner on Hoshido's side and Mages on the North side, but there are also some pretty new and neat classes like the Kishi Knight or Machinist that are really interesting to strategize around as well as play as. Reclassing also works the same way as Awakening, with you being able to reclass a unit using a specific seal, though what kind of classes they can reclass to will depend on the unit itself. Another interesting mechanic to take account is probably the Dragon Vein mechanic. The Dragon Vein mechanic is basically a special tile on the map that you can activate with anyone with Dragon's Blood, which is either the royal family of Nor or Hoshido and their offspring, as well as Korin, which will prompt an environmental change on the map. What that change is will depend on the map, from it activating an acid rain that reduces enemy HP to 1 if they're in a certain area, allow you to use the wind currents to move units, reduce the movement capacity of certain units while expanding the movement on others, etc. The Dragon Vein mechanic is very well done, as it allows for some very creative, dynamic, and fun map designs in Fire Emblem Conquest that is a blast to play through. And there are instances where it'd be prudent to not use a dragon vein as soon as you see it and save it for later, so it also heavily adds to the fun strategic gameplay that Fates Conquest have going for it. The generation system is also still in Fates, with you being able to get child character when you pair up a unit to S rank, with the child character getting certain skills from their parents, as well as their growth rates being affected by their parents. But there is a good addition that's been added to the child characters, which is namely, each child character now comes with an offspring seal, which will allow them to promote to a level where they're pretty much on par with their parent, which is a godsend in this game, especially since there is no grinding in Conquest, which overall made the child character quite viable to use, where in comparison in Awakening you had to grind the child characters to be on par with your main units, depending on where you were in the story in Awakening. Now the last mechanic I'll probably discuss in length is probably the pair up mechanic. Now the pair mechanic was a mechanic that was from Awakening but has been heavily modified. In Awakening, it was basically a mechanic where you could have two units combined so that the main unit would have significant stat boost, and for the stat boost if the support level of that unit was particularly high, as well as being able to assist attack and assist block, though it's chance based, with the chance of those things happening being higher depending on the support level between the two units. This has been changed in Fates. In Fates now, the pair mechanic can be split into attack and guard stance. Attack stance is basically when you have two units beside each other, which will give them some stat boost, and when a unit attack an enemy, the ally unit besides him/her will do an automatic assist attack. But do note that if you do this, you won't be able to defend against any enemy assist attack that they do because, well, the enemy units can now do the pair up mechanic as well. Guard stance, on the other hand, is when you actually pair up two units into one unit, with the main unit getting significant stat boost. What type of stat boost they get will depend on the support unit, as well as the support unit being able to defend automatically against any incoming enemy assist attack. But at the exact same time, you won't be able to get any assist attack from your surrounding allies when you're in guard stance. Also do note that you have a meter when you pair up in guard stance, which allows your support unit to automatically block the enemy main attacker if that meter is filled up, and you fill up the meter by attacking or your support unit defending you against enemy assist attacks, and etc. And do note that the higher support level the two units have with each other, the better stat boosts they get from each other. Overall, the way how they modify the pair up mechanic is simply fantastic. The way how they modify pair up makes it so there is a use to units not being paired up, and there is use to units just being beside each other, which was an issue in Awakening, where you really did have to use pair up all the time. Not to mention there are certain cons and pros to using attack and guard stance, which depends on the situation, which really adds to the strategic gameplay of Fates, such as, do I want to risk not being paired up and use attack stance so I can effectively eliminate this enemy quickly, but be at risk if an enemy attack me with their attack stance? Or do I want to play it more safe and attack a unit that is paired up with guard stance, which allows the unit to be not as much in a risk as a unit in attack stance, but also not have the offensive capabilities as one does in attack stance. This really adds a great dynamic to the pair up system that makes it a blast to use, and was a much needed improvement to the pair up system that was seen introduced in Awakening. Though outside of the core gameplay of Fire Emblem Fates, there is also another addition that Fates added, which is namely the My Castle feature, which basically functions as a base system where you'll be able to build various facilities using Dragon Vein points you can get from clearing chapters, as well as visiting other My People castles via online, and these facilities can help you during the course of the game, which ranges from weapon and stave shops, having a smithy, to facilities that can give you a boost during battle, such as the mess hall, building statues of various MVP characters that boost their caps. You can also build up certain defenses since there are invasions that can happen in your My Castle. Overall, the My Castle feature is a nice feature. I mostly use it to prepare for the upcoming chapters, and it serves well in that regard. and it has nice customization to it in terms of how you can decorate your my castle. And overall, the gameplay in Fire Emblem Fates Conquest is just amazing. The mechanics that they introduced and revamped are tightly woven and makes it really fun to strategize around with. The level design of each of the map in Fire Emblem Conquest is simply astonishing, from the map design to enemy placement to skills, with each chapter bringing a unique experience of their own. Each map is creative, well designed, and just a blast to go through, especially with the Dragon Vein mechanic. Each level can be quite difficult to go through, but they're difficult in the right ways. Mostly. There is one chapter which I think can be a bit overkill though. The map design in Conquest is simply one of the best map designs that the series has got to offer. Yeah, that's how good they are in my eyes. Now I'm going to talk briefly about the length of Fire Emblem Fates Conquest. Now people might be worried that each version of Fates, which is namely Birthright, Conquest, and Revelation, might be a third of a Fire Emblem game since there's like 3 games. Do not worry. Fire Emblem Conquest has like around 27 chapters, which is basically around the same length of a full-length Fire Emblem game. And it took me quite a while just to get through the game, so you don't have to worry about length. Oh, it's basically the length of a normal Fire Emblem game basically. Now, I have been mostly positive in Fire Emblem Fates gameplay, but there are some things that I do question, such as the addition of Phoenix Mode. I'm not a fan of it. I know I might come off as an asshole by saying that. For those who don't know what Phoenix Mode does, it basically makes it that any unit that you lose during battle will come back in the next turn, where comparison to casual mode, where the unit is gone only for the duration of the battle and will come back after the next battle. I know it's good to accommodate newcomers and it's a feature that's not forced on me, but I seriously think that casual mode more than satisfy newcomers' demand. Phoenix mode just seems so excessive and unnecessary, and essentially makes it that you can't even lose. It just seems such a waste of a mode to me that they could have used the time to do something else in Fire Emblem Fates rather than just make Phoenix mode. It's not a con, but it's still something that bothers me, even if I may come off as an asshole saying that. What is a con though is probably the evasion maps that happen in your My Castle. I can honestly say these maps are probably the most boring part of the game. They're nice for getting some nice experience, but there's not much strategic gameplay to them, and they can get rather dull. Chapter 25 can also be a bit much for some people. Well, one facet of Chapter 25, the right hallway. This hallway is almost impregnable, at least on hard mode, with all the ninjas having skills that can chip your HP to 1 no matter what you do. With the Master Arms, it's just going to go in there for the kill after that onslaught. It's not impossible as there are setups to get through it, but that right hallway can be really overwhelming for some people. I even dread playing through Chapter 25 on future playthroughs on Lunatic because I heard that the buff can stack if the enemy has the inevitable end skill, which is really scary. But yeah, that right hallway can be a bit much for some people. I mean, I personally found it fun trying to find out ways to go through the right hallway, but I can understand why some people might think the hallway of death might be overwhelming. The rest of Chapter 25 though I think is well designed. It's just that hallway is really a bit much for some people, and I can totally understand why. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with Fire Emblem Fates. It had a really nice presentation with it having nice art style, visuals, really good music, and the gameplay is just really addicting, with the mechanical changes as well as the superb level design making it one of the best Fire Emblems in terms of strategic gameplay. It does have some stuff that holds it back, such as the lackluster story, but even still, I had a blast with Fire Emblem Conquest and would immensely recommend the game to either Fire Emblem or even strategy role-playing game fans.